What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another season of the Panthers Nation Network. Of course, I'm Jack at Shontis, and look at. I thought we would have a quiet off season, right? And for the most part, we did, right? But then we didn't, and just as quick. So, a lot to talk about.
No, absolutely, bro. It's been a minute. Man, I've been geared up, ready to go to talk Panthers football with you. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same. It's cool doing the solo stuff, but it's just not the same without my dog, bro.
Right. I like that. I like to hear that. But it seems like people are going to have to get used to not being with the people they want to be with because half the freaking team is deciding to get injured through the preseason. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Come to think of it, and some people talk about it on Twitter, there's a substation pretty close to the Panthers training camp. Hopefully, it's not a common thing.
Bro, like I would like for this to just be like some crazy out the world theory, but I'm like, nah, because between us and the 49ers, bro, I don't know who got it worse.
Right. Probably the 49ers, I'd say.
I probably lean more towards them, but boy, we have our fair share. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's one after the other, and it'd be one thing if it was just injuries, right? But then, Timo, we already know he's, towards the end of his career. We give him, the ability to play a little bit longer, and then blood clots, and we don't know how long he's going to be out for. It's wild. Like,
it's just
I
like
have no idea. It's
you,
ridiculous.
that first day coming into camp, you hear about Timo, you hear about Jaycee. Um, I don't even know how to react because at this point I'm like, bro, we just started, and I refuse to try to be doom and gloom as soon as things get rolling, but dad gone, boy. Like you say, Timo, Jaycee, and then after the first day, and mind you, I'm hearing all this on the wake up. I wake up, check my phone. Oh, so Nick Scoring's out for the year. For sure. That's what's up, I guess. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's always something, bro.
Yeah, it quite literally is always something, and I don't know how much more we can take of it. Like, it's ridiculous to me, and I think that, like, some of it, is okay, some of it's not, right? Like, I think obviously the Chris Brazzell injury, that was just wildly mismanaged, I think, in terms of a PR standpoint, because the minute I saw it was an LCL or anything to do with that area, I'm like, okay, there's no way that's all he's going to be out for. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, I get what you don't know till you know, but anything, especially with a rookie, I don't think that they're not going to try to force him on, no matter how good of a camp he had or preseason he's had. They're not going to force that. So I wasn't surprised, that they put him, out for the season.
Yeah, no, I wasn't either. I mean, I think the initial report that came out it was like, what, 8 weeks, they were talking about like 2 months he was
Right.
going to be out for. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I haven't seen, I just wouldn't expect that off of a knee injury. Like you said, this is really no need to rush in, because if you do rush this, you can completely alter his career moving forward. You may not ever get a good season out of him ever if you were to rush him back. So, and,
Right.
and, and not for nothing, that position, for what it's worth, seems to be one of the deeper rooms we have on the team in terms of guys they think can contribute when you consider the amount of guys that we had play last year. So I think all of that led to, like, we don't really have to push this further than what we had to, and we never had him to begin with. We had him for the first couple of days of training camp. He was never truly a part of the offensive scheme. So
Which is what was also upsetting, was the fact that he had been faltering on that knee the last few days before this happened. Like, they had been holding him back in practice. They had not had him go full tilt, and it was because of that same knee. And so even, Canales said, like, yeah, it's the same knee. And he had, questionable injury, history, or a questionable history for health, in college as well. So it was like, why are you trying to push the envelope here? Is your, you know, confidence around Legette worse than you leading it on, than you're leading it on to be, and to the point where you feel like you need a third player there? And if that's the case, then, you know, you should be even more conservative. And then, even Legette almost, luckily it's not as bad as it looked initially, but there's a chance we almost lost him to a concussion. So thank goodness that went a better way. Same with Jatavian Sanders, same with Mitchell Evans. Like there was multiple guys, especially on
Yeah.
the offensive side of the ball. Damian Lewis wasn't even practicing this week. There's a lot of stuff up in the air.
Yeah, no facts. Like you said, back to the get point. They were definitely. I'm overly confident that Brazo had taken that spot. Like all he had to do at this point was just show up, and the spot was going to be his if he was available. They were going to give him the majority of those wide receiver 3 reps. As I said, as far as with Damian Lewis, I remember initially because it's supposed to be a calf injury with Damian Lewis, correct?
Right.
I remember the first day Dave talked about it. They acted as if like, hey, this is just something, precautionary. They were taking it day to day. I'm like, I don't hear whenever I hear the word calf in relation to an injury, I'm like, dog, this is not something you can spin it to the media all you want to. No, I'm thinking the
Especially
worst
with a big
possible
man.
scenario, right? Especially with a big guy. So it's and with the amount of injuries we've already taken on the offensive line front as is, I'm like we truly can't afford it. But I don't know. I don't feel great. I go ahead and PTO prepare the others because I'm almost positive we're gonna have to see somebody else in that spot. Once the
Right.
season
And I
starts.
mean, luckily that's been, they re-signed Christensen. They have Zavala, who looks to be getting healthier week by week because, he was obviously one of the late exits he was one of the exits last year of a guy that we didn't have. So there are, at least guys with, familiarity in those specific spots. And then it's out to the tackles, unfortunately, where we did, our due diligence in the where the Panthers did their due diligence in the offseason to make sure that something was taken care of, but there were definitely question marks, more so with Rasheed Walker. You wondered if everything off the field was going to impact anything to how he's able to play on the field. And now with, with Timo going down and Icky, still on the recovery process, you're going to have him starting, and then you're going to have Monroe starting on the other side. The people that were saying, "Oh, this is a pick that's not going to matter for 3 years," that was wishful thinking. I don't know what you thought a lineman on the Panthers wasn't going to have an impact somewhere on the field, especially that drafted that high up. There's a reason why, because you always have to, to supplant the trenches.
No, absolutely. And look at last year. Look at how many combinations we rolled out last year. I think we rolled out the most offensive line combinations of. I think I don't know if it was of any team, or I know we were at least in the top 5 in terms of
It was up
combinations
there.
put out there. It was up there. So what would make you think that he's not going to play? Like what? How would even if he isn't starting, he's going to play. He's booked that.
Blissful ignorance, because and that's before even Brady Christensen was re-signed. Now, hopefully, he can come through and be healthy again. That'll be a good key piece for the Panthers to bring up. And then, of course, the question surrounding Luke Fortner. That center position is definitely something that I would have liked to have been more solidified than with a guy that has been there for a while and just has familiarity with Canales and with the offense. But from what I've seen, from the different variations, the offensive line does look good. It's playing against our defensive line, so it's definitely got its work cut out for it. But I'm liking what I'm seeing for the most part, provided, of course, that Lewis can come back and be healthy. I don't think you're going to see him throughout the preseason, at least not in the first 2 weeks. And nor should you, to be honest. As far as the rest of the offense goes, even with like some of the things we've seen, Jatavian Sanders, I mean, when they put the depth chart out, he was third.
Yeah, it looks spooky, but I mean, it speaks to what we've seen the past couple of years. His rookie year, he had a stretch there where he started and where he was really looking like the guy, looking like a guy that could take that tight end, a tight end one role. But last year, we saw Mitchell Evans ascend right past him, and we saw the consistency with the drop issues, and 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 now even more so, like Tommy Tremble's already entrenched himself as a weapon that Bryce loves to utilize. Mitchell Evans started to become more reliable. Just Xavier Sanders, he just hasn't provided much of anything. He isn't a great pass catcher, isn't great after the catch, isn't the strongest of blockers. So what is it that you do that can get you on the field, brother? At this point, you will be a special teamer.
Right. And I mean, we will say, of course, with tight ends, as far as, the Panthers go, being the third string doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to see any playing time, because there are going to be times where they run, multiple tight end sets. So it's not something to say, okay, well, we don't need to know what they're doing right now. I think that it definitely is a indicator of, look, you gotta, show up or shut up, because there are guys in front that can make more of a splash if they're given the chance. And if you don't, put key into that, then you're not going to get it. And I think that it would suck, because that would have been kind of not viewed as necessarily a wasted pick, but to know that the, two guys that are above him are one that you already had on the team, and then a guy you bring in after the fact, it's like, oh, wow, well, that could have been, spent on something else. As far as everything else goes, wide receivers, we talked about it a little bit, but, we know, I think, obviously all eyes are on Xavier Legette. You know what you're going to get from Coker and T-Mac. Hopefully they continue to play the way that they have. It'll be interesting to see how, they utilize, Bryce and Tremaine still. I mean, David Moore is going to make the final 52. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's 100% going to happen. But then there's guys like, John Mechie. Not really sure where he factors in. And of course, Jimmy Horn. But I think the biggest question obviously is Xavier Legette.
Right. So I mean, right as of right now, and we only can go off of the clips that we get, at least on the fan side, is look, he looks much faster. He dropped about 12 pounds in the offseason. He's playing at about that way he was playing at his last year in South Carolina, which, if you look at how he played at South Carolina in comparison to the league, much quicker, much more explosive. I'm hoping that weight change is going to factor into that here at the NFL level. He looks quicker out of his breaks. I'm seeing a bit more confidence. I see a little bit more a bit more nuance to his route running that I didn't see the first couple of years. And not for nothing, X didn't have great camps his first 2 years in the league. We didn't hear about X dominating camps or showing these flashes. This year is the first year that we've seen him get a lot of camp chatter. So I think he definitely knows this is a pivotal year for his career. It's starting to show in terms of what we hear, in terms of the feedback we're seeing from the media. And even in some of the few instances that we get to see him, he looks like a guy that is playing a bit more focused than we've seen in the previous 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that, it's the same thing with him. It's time to put up or shut up, and you might get moved somewhere else, and it's been interesting. Steve Smith has been around a lot this offseason, and a lot through training camp. Now, he, of course, took a little bit of more of a liking to Chris Brazzell, which, is any indication of who he was kind of favoring, but he's been there to kind of mentor everybody. So it's been interesting to see him back, I mean, multiple times a week, multiple weeks, to try to, hopefully instill some of what he's known and what he's done onto this Panthers wide receiver room, because Lord knows they're gonna need it, because Bryce Young is poised to, I think, have, like, that breakout year that we've all kind of been wanting from him. And even more so than we've seen in the past, because in my opinion, outside of some, a slow start, he had a breakout season last year. I think
Yeah.
outside of a couple of the first games, you know, he had his breakout year. He had his breakout moments, and he was poised to lead us into certain spots if there weren't, if things don't go the other way. So this year, fighting for that, that contract extension, getting the 5th year option, which we knew it was going to happen. It's going to be really interesting to see how much how much he can really dominate the season in his own right.
No, absolutely. And this year it seems like he's been much more dominant at camp than the previous 2 years. And what the previous 3 years. Um, and I mean, obviously the confidence is going to continue to grow as the more years he gets into the league. But I think having that year he had last year, showing how great he can be in crunch time scenarios, I think everybody on the team should have a pretty solid level of trust in him. And at this point, it's a level of self confidence that you start to have once you've done it a few times. And I think he's poised to go have a great season. Um, the only thing I question is just, the change up in play callers and everything of that nature. So I guess that would be my only real concern. But aside from that, I think Bryce is poised to take a nice leap into like that top half of the league conversation in terms of like top 15, like caliber of quarterbacks. Right now, he's in that. Many people have him sitting around like 22nd, 23rd in terms of quarterback ranks. I believe he can move into like the top 15 with the season with the stellar season this year.
I think so too. Yeah, I think he's got all of the play, everything put in place. So I do think it's interesting. Yeah, we knew we weren't going to see him in this Hall of Fame game. Kenny Pickett, of course, getting the start, but with Idzik, now taking over play calling, I'd like to see, there's got to be at least one game, 1 or 2 games where he gets a couple of drives to get kind of fleshed out with his new play calling, and I would like to. That's been the thing we've asked for every year. Make sure that you get him out there during the preseason. And so with this extra game, because I thought it always counted as one of our 3 now. You only get the 3 ones, but they still get 3. So we get 4 preseason games to showcase players. So I hope he can. That means we get him somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know how. Again, with Dave and this coaching staff, we just don't know how much we're gonna get to see of them. Like, against the, I don't know, man. I cannot trust this coaching staff right now to properly flesh out a preseason. That's the one thing. That's the one knock against Dave Canales that has not changed. Is that through the first 2 years, these slow starts typically are because your starters didn't get enough burn in the preseason, I feel, and we go into the season a bit behind the 8 ball. But I don't know, man. I guess I wonder what's a good amount of work for that Bills game on the 15th. Like how much work is good work in that.
For me, I I would like at least 3 drives. Like, you don't need, whether that's a whole quarter or whatnot. I don't know. I think that, especially for what you want to see, and like for going up against real true talent, right? Like, or I mean, let me rephrase that, because I guess all of our preseason games are pretty, you know, pretty, significant in terms of the teams you're playing with: the Bills, the Jags, and the Texans. Um, you know, I think it's against the Bills. It's on the road. I would like to see him play at least a couple drives, because the fact that you're going to only get 1 home preseason game and that's the last one, you're not going to see any starters there at all. And I don't think against the Jags is who they really, they might want to do it against the Jags. I'm not entirely sure, but I would say at least 2-3 drives with Bryce. Because that's like everybody else. Either you can give them no drives, or you can give them a couple more. Like, I'm not really pressed about anybody else. I'd like to see, XL, obviously. I'd like to see Jonathan Brooks in a good amount of drives, and I'd like to see this defense. I'd like to see this defense out for a significant amount of time, especially the starters,
Right.
because there's a lot of new guys at new key positions that we need to build that chemistry with.
No, absolutely. And I'm with you. I said, like you said, 2 to 3 drives against the Bills. I'd say an entire half against the Jags, and then not at all against the Texans.
Right. I
Like that.
I love an entire half. I don't think we're gonna get that. I don't think Bryce has gotten an entire half
I don't think
in
so.
the entirety of his
He'll
being
get a
here.
quarter. I think he'll get a full quarter, but that's about
A
it.
quarter, right?
Yeah.
100%. Because switching to the defense. Well, actually, before switching to defense, like talking about some of the other weird circumstances with this offseason, you having two retirements with Yash Neiman back at the beginning retiring, and he was serviceable and he was impactful, and then LeBron Ray, I just what yesterday I think it was what it was. LeBron Ray, retired, and it's I don't
Uh,
know, obviously they're just, role players, but when you like in the trenches is not where I'd really like to see retirements.
no, absolutely not. And LeBron Ray, I guess LeBron Ray was a guy I definitely thought would be a good depth piece. I think in terms of a rotational guy that you'd have, that's who I wanted. I guess it does open up the window opportunity for some other guys as well. Because we start looking at where these guys were. Well, LeBron Ray, he was considered a edge, right? In this defense.
In quotations, right?
Yeah.
Like edge
Yeah.
is strong.
Yeah, and we're just kind of thin there.
Right.
I mean, would you just get really thin at those defensive end positions now without him there? So yeah,
Like
no,
Bobby just got Bobby just got reactivated
yeah,
literally on Monday, and that's great. I'm glad to see him back. Turk, is still on the pup list. We're not, however long that's going to be. So
Yeah.
especially that position specifically, same like I said with the offensive line, that's not really where I wanted to see, retirements. And so right now as it stands, you've got they're putting Cam up in front, Cam Jackson, I think he was what 6th or 7th round pick last year.
Yes.
Monster of a human being. He's ginormous, but they've got him right now at the nose tackle spot with Bobby and Derek Brown on the edges. So, and then Lee Hunter sitting behind Cam Jackson. Right now, Derek Brown has no true second string.
No, he does not. You know, and this is where the preseason becomes important because there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of no name guys to, hey, show everybody why you're supposed to be on this roster. Show your level of importance to this team, and because I mean, right now we're looking for somebody to step up. We are just desperately looking for somebody to step up and take over these backup positions.
Right. And you're going to need that throughout the entirety of the defense. Obviously Nick Scorton, that's just crushing. That's like the literal last thing you want to see. And the odd part was that watching the play live, like it did not seem like anything really happened. It was very odd and very eerie. And to then find out, that's season ending for a guy who showed a lot of promise in his first year and, was going to be a huge part of this new linebacking core of, Jalen Phillips and Trevin Wallace and Devin Lloyd. That was really like the most exciting room and probably one of the most complete rooms on the whole team.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And again, I saw Dave Canales speak about this just yesterday with Cam Newton. It's just that like how certain guys work and how they approach the game. He had earned that respect so quickly in that locker room and became such a fixture in the locker room so early that like hey, like in year 2, he's going into year 2 as a pivotal piece, and that everybody's thinking like, hey, look, if we have him, we have a chance to be really great. You know what I'm saying? So you hate to see a guy like that go down. And again, missing. Yeah, I know you're just missing the entirety of the season when you had such a solid start to your career. But I mean, the only thing you can do is look forward, and I'll look over at Princely, and there were a lot of things that he left to be desired in his rookie season. We knew he was a pass rush guy coming out of college, but in the pros, you're gonna have to be able to do everything. Like how well can you, how well do you play the run? Can you be a consistent pass rusher, or are you just a third down specialist? You know what I'm saying? Like where has his game grown to? And that's gonna be the biggest question. If Princely has done the work, then we should be okay. But you started to see a clear separation between him and Nick Scorton last year, and you started to see Nick Scorton really take on the, you know, he played up to a starter level because because of his versatility, because of how he was able to play everything. So, Princely still gives me the I still have a glitter in my eye for Princely because he's a great pass rusher. At least that's what he was coming out of college. But how do you put it all together now to become a complete edge is the question.
Yeah, he has the opportunity to be one of the more important players in this defensive, group because with both Patrick Jones and Jalen Phillips having injury histories, and not, not great injury histories in the past, right? Patrick Jones not even getting a full season last year to start off. And then, of course, Phillips trying to recover from multiple season ending injuries in his career. There's a chance that he's going to have to step up into one of those roles on either side. Patrick Jones, for when he was in the field and when he was playing, there was promise there, but there was also a lot of margin for error. Like, what are we doing here? Why did we sign you? You need to show up. So it's interesting to see, they've got him sitting behind Phillips and hopefully they'll let him, roam around and go to both sides because outside of that, there's a lot of depth in that room that, is exciting to watch. Obviously Claudin, played a huge, starting role last year after Trevin Wallace went down. So he's got the experience needed. It'd be interesting to see what Van Martin Scott can do. And then there's a couple younger guys, they signed like Nick Hampton from the Rams, who had, an interesting off season a couple years ago. And then Cam Gill, what was the UFL? What was he? The defensive MVP? What was it?
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
something like that. Something like that. Yeah,
Look
defensive
at
MVP, I
if
believe.
he can if they
Hey,
can get that out of him.
let it translate. I do not care. Like, well, if it can translate, then I'm all for it.
Right. So it's it's gonna be interesting all around. Then of course you have the cornerback room. And I don't know. This discourse around Trayvon Merrick is like, look at. I understand the metrics don't look good. The eye test does not hit there, but we also know what Merrick is on this team. We've known that. We know why we brought him in. So why are we, obviously you want to be able to play both facets, but why are we, hitting so hard on what we know that he wasn't brought here for?
It's fine. I like exactly like he's not a cover safety. That's not what he was. He was in the box, like bro. He's damn near one of your best blitzers. Like, that's how much he wasn't doing in coverage. Like I mean, like and for what it's worth, when it was time to cover, he covered. That's all I can
Right.
say. And one-on-ones, and I'll tell you this. I said it on Jim Dropper Sports, and I'll say it here. One-on-ones just isn't the greatest indicator for how it'll translate over to like real football. One-on-ones aren't real football. You don't get that many opportunities in a game to just go one-on-one with a guy unless you're unless you're a number one X receiver. Like those guys get the one-on-one matchups. The rest of y'all boys, you'll have to sift through traffic with linebackers, linemen, and everything alike. So you won't get this freedom of movement like these guys get in these one-on-one. That's why I'm like, I don't get too giddy over that. I'm like, if I could see the team reps and see how guys are playing in team reps, that'll be more what I would judge. But one-on-ones, it is what it is. But now that being said, it looks bad.
I mean, how many times do we have our safeties and press coverage running one-on-ones anyhow? Like,
exactly.
You're right. And that always made me upset because it's like, it's like comparing, a board drill to how they're actually going to be able to do when it's a block, that they have to read or that, a hole that they have to open instead of just running straight ahead at somebody and hitting them as hard as possible. It's not what linemen do in game. That's just pure athleticism, especially, and a guy, like I said, especially for a safety who's not going to be in very many man coverage situations at the line of scrimmage, mind you. Like, he's not playing that high up. It's one thing to be, into a zone. Okay, now you have to make sure you've got him in your zone. So if he, jukes you out, then it's going to look bad. But, like, you're not pressing coverage with your safeties more often than not. We've got, now that we're going to have Jaycee travel like we want, like we're hoping to see full throttle, like, it's not what you're going to see. So I'm not really worrying about it in that regard.
No, absolutely not. But to touch on this cornerback room a bit, this room to me is my favorite room of the entire team. I think this is the deepest room. I think the talent at the top is at its highest. Like Mike Jack and Jaycee Horn are two corners that, like, I saw the cornerback list that came out that had Jaycee eighth. I'm like, I don't agree with that. I thought Jaycee should have been more closer to like the sixth spot, but that's fine. But
don't look at the Madden ratings. You'll get even more pissed.
Oh yeah, I peeped. I'm like, bro, like whatever. Cooper DeJean over my dog is crazy.
Ridiculous.
I won't say exactly why it's crazy, but if you know, you know.
I will.
You know what I'm saying?
You gotta have a separate list if we're being really honest.
Totally separate list. Respect the buddy though. He nice. He not better than my dog, bro.
It's just not happening.
I'm not rolling. Mike Jack is one of those guys where I could make a great case for Mike Jack being on a top 10 list. I could make because considering that Cooper DeJean made that list that I saw, I can argue Mike Jack over Cooper DeJean for sure.
I think, like, and it's always interesting in terms of what metric are we talking about with cornerbacks? Is it a turnover ratio? Is it is it targets? Is it press coverage? Is it PBIs, or PBUs? What are we leaning towards? But for, like, Mike Jack had all of them last year. Like, you want to talk about picks? He had damn near just as many as Jaycee, and his weren't like a lot of Jaycee's. Like about half of Jaycee's were gimmies. Like half of Jaycee's were him just, but the other half were him flying from the other side of the field. But Mike Jack had 2 pick sixes, I want to say.
I think he had one. He had 1 pick six. He had and the other one he was supposed to have. He should have had 2 against Atlanta.
He didn't have one against the Rams. I thought he had one against the Rams that first time.
Did he? He did have one against the Rams. I'm tripping. Yeah, he did have.
Yeah, okay. That's because he had the Falcons one and he had the Rams one. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, he should have had the pick in against was it the maybe it was the Packers, that one he should have had.
Oh my god, yeah, that was awful. That was awful.
Like guys, do not piss me off. Give Mike Jack his money. He's shown that he's deserving of it. You can solidify your cornerback room with one of the top duos in the league, and because like your backups are good, but they're young.
They are.
They're very young. Corey Thornton, we're not sure how his leg's gonna look after his injury. Like, and Chaw has been incredibly, has done incredibly well at the nickel position for what he's had to do. And then you don't even know about Will Lee, so just give him the money.
Yeah, if you told me today that hey, Mike Jack can't start and we gotta roll with either like Corey Thornton or Will Lee at outside corner, I'm like, I'm not as sold on that. Corey Thornton, yes, I truly believe in Corey Thornton. The only thing right now is like you said, how is he recovering off of that
Right.
injury? Like, so that's the biggest question mark. Will Lee, he's just too young and he does exactly what young cornerbacks
Right.
do: real grabby, real handsy. That would it just wouldn't. Not yet. He needs a year or two before I can feel comfortable with him out there. And like you said, like even Sean Smith-Wade, I can't trust that. I can't trust a guy that size to play outside corner position in today's NFL.
No, you need your two towering guys. Like Mike Jack has the measurables. He's shown in big games when he's needed to do. Other than a couple drives against Mike Evans, which it's Mike Evans.
It's Mike Evans.
Like,
bro.
I don't care what age it is. It's Mike Evans. It's Mike Evans. Like, it's fine. I just, for a position that you've never in your team's history had two, like, had two 1A, 1B, like, because that's what Mike Jack's coming up from. And for Dan Morgan to understand what you got him for. You got him for a steal, a freaking, I think it was like a 4th or a 5th, and then that guy we drafted in the 7th round, like the defensive lineman they drafted.
Yeah, it was like a linebacker out of Michigan that hadn't even touched the field at all.
And you were able to flip him for that.
Yeah, I don't even think he's in the league today.
No, he was literally just drafted.
Yeah, I think he's already out of the league. I think that's the crazy part.
Yeah, right. And so, like, for a position that is going to increasingly be like, and especially in the NFC South too, where the only thing going for a lot of these teams outside of the Falcons is their passing attack right now. Like, that's all they're really gonna. We'll see how how Travis Etienne does with the Saints, and we'll see what the Bucks do from a running perspective. But like, it's still so much a passing league. And you need to have these guys. So I hope they make the right decision. And at some point down the line, give him the money that deserves. I hope Mike also understands that what he thinks he deserves probably isn't as much as he does deserve, more than likely. Because, DBs, they do love to bet on themselves highly, which I get it. But
look, here's the thing. Is like, if he puts together another year like he did last year,
right,
he would garner CB1 money. And that isn't something you can pay him. Like I know, like, he's in a good position right now because, like, hey, look, yes, you should bet on yourself because the bet you're gonna make is like either I'm getting CB1 money or I'm getting CB2 money. Either way, I should be sitting at about I should be making about $10 million plus a year, no matter what. After this season's over with, like that's where I should be at. How close can I get to CB1 money? If I can get there, if I put together another year like how I did last year, then somebody's gonna pay me cornerback 1 money.
Right.
And if they do, I gotta take it.
Right. And there'd be nothing. So I hope they aren't cheap and they understand that that's where they need to fill, because there's a lot of other places, like, they went heavy on linebacker this year. They went heavy taking care of those positions they need to take care of. So if you can do that and continue to do so, that's what I would love to see. But as far as this, Hall of Fame game goes and weekend goes, all I just want to see is competent play calling. None of this. Come on, don't make me angry. Don't give me any of these trick plays. I don't care. I don't know what you're doing, but I need to see that Idzik can understand what he has to do and play it like an in-game scenario. I want quick, get the play out, get the ball ready to go, because it's been a consistent problem for Dave Canales since he's been here is the play clock. So I don't want to see that translate to Idzik, and I want to see that it's like not just. I don't want it to just be the same offense we've seen, because then it's like, what's the point, right? Like, I do want to see some splashes of something different.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the overall expectation. I think Idzik coming from being a wide receivers coach now to being an OC, I expect to see more deep shots being taken. I would love to see them experiment with that more in
Hopefully.
this preseason game. There and for me, I got a few. There's just a lot of guys that I really want to see how they reacted to real game scenarios. Jaycee Reed, who's been a guy that his name has constantly popped up here as of late. Would love to see where he's at, what he does. I'm positive we're gonna see Jimmy Horn and John Mechie. Those two guys are like, hey, who's gonna separate themselves as this slot receiver that is great after the catch? Like, who can create those big plays? Who has a great grasp of the offense, and how comfortable can they look? Travis Etienne as well, though, because he's a guy that has gotten lost in the shuffle now that Brooks is back, and Chuba, and Chuba's obviously, a front runner as well. Him and AJ Dillon. I guess I wonder how much of AJ Dillon you see because he's more of a veteran now. I do wonder if he, like, how much burn is he gonna get. But for ETN, I mean, I thought there were moments last year when he got chances to carry the rock where I'm like, okay, no, he's got something. Maybe he just needs more reps, needs more confidence. Let's see if he can start to grow in this role. And I would love to see what he could do. And like I said, returners, receiver position, running back position. Jackson Kawach at linebacker. I guess I haven't heard much about him since he's been there. Just is it much to do
Really, I
about
mean,
nothing? Or,
being that far back, and he's gonna be third string, right? Like, I've honestly I want to see more of Isaiah Simmons, fill that role than I would see, Kawach. I think he'll be a serviceable player. How much he makes an impact depending upon, where he's able to go. Because it's always interesting. Sometimes they're drafted. They'll put the rookies in the depth chart high up because, hey, well, we drafted him, we got to. But then sometimes they'll go, okay, well, he's a rookie. We can't just give him that depth chart spot, so he's got to earn it, right? So there's, like, obviously, like Will Lee, was sitting there in the third string. Even Lee Hunter behind Cam Jackson, like, that one was a shocker for me. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I hope that is what I think. It's good. And maybe it's a 1A, it's a 1A, 1B kind of thing in that middle if they, want to throw that in there. So it'll be interesting to see, right? I want to see, the ability to show, like you said, the downfield balls, but then also like utilizing like guys while you have them for. So showing AJ Dillon, and let me see some short yardage, packages, right? Like, let me see some 3rd and 3s, 2nd and 2s, some things where we like AJ Dillon would love to see him like a little, like a Mike Tolbert type of contribution to the offseason or offense. And then outside of that, I want to see play action. I would love to see some more play action, especially when you've got these guys that we know can roll out on the fly. And Bryce has shown that he makes a lot of magic happen when a play breaks down. So getting him out to start, like that, I think would bode well for him. I think we're like middle of the pack, if not lower, as far as play action percentage from the amount of plays we call. I would love to see that, and I just would love to see continuous competent play and early. Like, I would love to just not, because in every postseason it's been nothing, like 1 touchdown a game, and I think like the preseason, if that, for the last 2-3 years. So just don't embarrass us. It's Luke's weekend. Do not embarrass us.
That's like my only thing. Like, I know I shouldn't care about winning a Hall of Fame game, but I almost like, but for Luke, I would love to see somebody. I would love to go out there and get a dub for
especially because it's the first, like, no disrespect to Kevin Green, to Julius Peppers, to
right,
Sam Mills, but it's the first player start to finish.
It's a bona fide Panther,
like nowhere else.
Yeah.
And it's the first, the modern day true. He was never faltering for the Panthers and was there for so many big moments. So I want to see it show out. I want to see, I'm excited to see all the, I was talking to Captain Munderland the other day. Like, he's got a JV game on Thursday. So then he's going to fly out Friday after that to get up there. Like, I'll be interested to see how many people are out there. If Cam's out there, I got to imagine he will be, Greg, like J Stu, all those, TD, all those guys there to watch and to, cheer him on. I'm excited to see it. And it's just like, it sucks. It's bittersweet because it's like, yeah, that's how good he was. And even with his short time frame, he's still that revered and still able to get on it like that, no time whatsoever to be a Hall of Famer. It's just kind of crazy to see someone who we saw from draft to retirement is now in the Hall of Fame.
No, facts. It's crazy. But like, when you watch them early, you're like, dog, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Like as many great linebackers that we've seen throughout our lifetime, and especially at that time, because you're coming out of the era that had the Urlachers, the Ray Lewis, and then you obviously you have the guys like the Patrick Willis, you know what I'm saying, Navarro Bowman's, all of these cats, and you see Luke, and it's like, bro, he's not like them. He's great, but he's not like them. And he's different, bro. I'm seeing the guy that just instinctually is ahead of the curve, athletically up there with some of the best. And again, like I got that, I feel like he truly maximized his football potential. Like I think he got everything out of the game that he could possibly get. So when he did decide to retire, I understand it, because if you don't think you can give what you've always been able to give, then I don't even want to see anything else other than that. I think so. To me, it was the perfect way for Luke's career to go, in terms of like, hey, he always looked like Luke Kuechly every time we saw him on the field. It was never a time where I thought, oh, he's kind of losing it. He ain't really got it like that this year. Like, nah, I truly felt that every time I saw Luke Kuechly, I was seeing the best version of him, and that version, I believe, is the best linebacker in football.
Right. It completely changed the game of how you play linebacker. He wasn't just someone who's going to knock your head off. He had the eyes of a safety, the mind of a defensive coordinator, and the body of a linebacker. And like, instead of just closing his eyes and being like a bull, running to red, he was reading the plays, knowing them before they were getting called, and able to dissect it. And it's like, it was just so different. And yeah, you saw nothing like it. And I would be hard pressed to ever see, if we can see anything like it. And especially coming out and where the Panthers had not had a big defensive star in a little while. Like, Thomas Davis was growing in his prime, but his prime, I think, was with Kuechly at the time. JPP or Peppers was not there. John Beeson was about to retire. Like, you had nobody really there. And it just kind of continued on along this path of, this is who the Panthers can put out there. And funnily enough, you talk about his retirement. That was what started this podcast. was like, all right, we got to say something, because that was like, oh my God, what's happening? What is happening? This team is completely different now. And I'll never forgive Matt Rule, because you say he never looked like himself, but that last season, mentally, he did not look like he was all there, because he was having panic attacks, like, in coverage, trying to get people where they needed to be.
Oh yeah, it didn't look like him, because everything else looked like shit. My boy Luke is perfectly fine, but
It was just really, it's going to be really awesome to see this weekend.
no, absolutely, man. Like I said, I can't wait to see all the guys there. I would love to see the team perform at a high level for them. Like, again, I'm still locked in on some of these guys that are maybe not household names today, that can try to make an impact, and let's see who steps up now, and with these new opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting back into the swing of things. We'll have more content for you as the season goes along. But until next time, keep pounding.